Evening, ladies and gentlemen. You might be able to hear me. If you can't, just shout out and I'll get a little bit later. Tonight I'm doing a talk mostly Woodnuts. So what I've decided to do is to do a bit of the last talk, because there's a few people here tonight who wasn't there then. So if you think to yourself, well, I've seen that picture before, I've heard those words, it'll be quite right. But there will be a variation as I go along. That's just a nice, lovely picture. We're not quite sure exactly. We know roughly where it is. We think that Woodnuts would have been about there somewhere, around about that area. That's taken from on the Downs by the fort. But we thought we'd just show that to see what the harbour used to look like. And now we're going on and work this machine. We've seen this one before. I like this one. This is a nice one. Just an engraving. This was about 1850. But let's just wander back a bit to 1780, when they built the mill and the mill wall. The sea was still running up to Bryden and beyond, of course, and there'll probably be about another 100 years of the cargo boats running up to Bryden before the embankment was made. St Helens itself was not that big at the time, made up of a few stone huts and farms. But by about 1850, roughly when this engraving was done, things were changing fast here. The Dover, just a sandy spit, was leased out by the grossmiths from the Priory to various firms. If you look at the building on the Dover, we think that could have been the Ferry Inn, we're not sure. The building by the barge would have been Wade's, Alfred Wade's boat shed, and the barge, we're not sure. It could have been bringing in timber or maybe coal or anything like that. We're not quite sure what that was. Maybe the coal for James Faithful. By 1871, Charles Midline, I'm reading this by the way because I can't remember it all. Charles Midline, born in St Helens in 1828 and living at Woodbine Villas, took out a 1,000-year lease for £3.13 and 6 per year on part of this site. The site being between the two buildings. On this side also, there were various firms over the years. There were Bowens, Stewart's. The kitchens were there for a while. There were Goodall's and Ural Launches, plus just a few. This is a site roughly between the two sheds that Woodnuts would eventually take over. This is John Henry Woodnut and his wife Lydia. Bit of a scratchy old photo, but not bad. He was born in Bryden in 1841. His father's name was Barney. Of course, the Dover at that time was in Bryden anyway, so perhaps he did live on the Dover, we're not sure. As a boy, he took up sailing as a sailmaker, went to sea. He Emily went to sea on a vessel skippered by Harry Calls of St Helens. And eventually he met Hilary Calls, who was the daughter of Harry, and married her. For a time they lived at Eddington Road. I'll have to hang about a bit, I've got my four things mixed up now. Here we go. In 1885, John Henry Woodnut took out a 999-year lease on part of the site at £5 5 shillings per year as a sailmaker, boatwork and chandlery. And for the next 15 years, John Woodnut built the business up and his name became well known nationwide. In the year 1900, Charles Midlane died. His family put the lease up for sale, and John Henry Woodnut did the same. Mr. Westmacott came on the scene and took over the leases on condition that he could still trade as Woodnuts. Alfred Westmacott was born in 1868. His father, Percy, was the founder of a Tyneside shipbuilding company. Alfred worked for his father, passed all his exams, and became a naval architect. At the age of 31, he branched out and came on his own to the island, where he took up the Dover site. And then he set up a firm called Westmacott and Stewart. Now, this is a boat, one of the boats, called the Beaver, that was built by Westmacott and Stewart. He also built a centreboard yawl called Red Rose, a 5-ton yacht with a Wolseley petrol engine called Ivy, and a 3-ton auxiliary yawl called Jackass. Alfred Westmacott, with help from his father, bought the freehold of the site and again started trading as Woodnuts. I meant to tell you that Mr. Westmacott fell out with Mr. Stewart in the meantime, so they parted company. This is the reason why Alfred Westmacott decided to take over the site on his staff. He did most of the designing and Woodnuts built the boats. He did not stop there. They built their own marine engines, 40 hands in the fitting shop, new sail loft with its own coloured sails, blacksmith shop, making all their own fittings, and a worldwide postal service for Chandley. The firm was expanding fast, and it made a lot of difference to St Helens and the surrounding areas because the economy was getting better and St Helens started to expand. This is a Victory class boat. I think Mr. Coburn started to design it, and then Alfred Westmacott changed the design of it and modified it, and this was the result. They're still sailing today. This is a boat, 75-foot boat, designed and built by Woodnuts, 1908, powered by 3 Woodnuts 4-cylinder paraffin engines. Here's this old crinkly picture again I showed last time. The reason I've shown it is because on the left is what will be the new sail loft. It's still being built. The middle's a shed that was knocked down probably in the 30s. The next bit, the middle piece, that's the piece that John Henry Woodnut originally took over. That would have been the sail loft. And then you go on over to the right, that would have been the 2 boat shops. When we come to the end in a minute, you'll find that that one in the middle, that John Henry Woodnut took over, is the only one left down there now. All the rest are gone. This is a boat called the Aramis, built in 1906, about 30 foot long. She was the winner of a gold medal reliability test with a 12 horsepower engine. This is a Sunbeam. The lines are plans of a Sunbeam, and that's Mr. Westmacott sat there by the side. That was one of his finest designs. Woodnuts built about 39 of these, and they're still sailing today. Now this one's, that's a Sunbeam, I'm almost certain. Looks like a Sunbeam. And that's going back quite some way. I'm not sure the date, but there again is the sail loft that John Henry Woodnut originally took over. Now, we've seen this one before, but it's such a nice photo, I thought I'd show you again, and there's a few locals on here. Most of them passed on by now, of course. This was 1924. Just trying to work out it. Oh, right. So, I'll name some of them. I don't know them all. We're at the back row, left to right, Charlie Trent. The third one along, Rodney Porter. And the sixth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Jack Henley. I don't know any of the other ones. The second row, left to right, was the Fountain. The second one was Cliff Henley. The third one, Ernie Lewis. The fourth one, Hubert Coombs. The fifth one, Alf Fountain. And the sixth one, Leonard Burden. Third row, number 1, was a man by the name of Pook or Pope, P-O-O-K. Well, last time I didn't know who he was, and nobody else seemed to know. But I found out since that he did marry one of John Woodnuts' sisters. Number 2, Alfie Lewis. Number 3, Gozo Edmonds. Number 4, Jack Calloway. Number 5 was a Fountain. And number 6 would have been a bloke named Bill Guy. Have I got them all there? Yeah. Right. And the fourth row at the front, we don't know them all. Number 2 was Alfie Wade. And number 3, Albert Rook. There we are. Nice little picture there. Sorry? Well, there's 2 Henrys on there, yeah. Now, this is another picture that we've seen before, the yard. That was in its glory days with all the nice buildings there. You can see in the background the golf club. Just behind the middle of that shed there, you can see a green in the middle there, to the left-hand side of the road that forks in. A really thriving yard. On your right, at the bottom, was the sandbank, which is now Actress Boatyard. And you can see there's 2 or 3 houseboats there. Not much else to say about that one. But sadly, Captain Alfred Westmacott died in 1936, aged 68. And then, of course, his stepson, along with other people, Alec Mellor, took over the running of the firm. Now, you might say to yourself, why did I show you this one? Well, it's quite a nice one of the Dover. It's a bit different from the engraving we saw in the first or the second slide, but you can see how things have changed. You can see both the mill walls, the one nearest, of course, the one we walk across, and the one farthest away, the one that used to be there, and it's quite a neat looking picture, and it looks quite a busy turnout down there now. It looks like the sailing barges are off of Woodnuts, and the golf course was looking nice in those days. Now here's one you haven't seen before, or I don't think you have. This was Wee Mac III. Woodnuts built 3 of these Wee Macs. This was the biggest one and the last one they built in 1937. She was weighed about 29 tons, and she was skippered by Henry Williams at St Michael's Road. Standing in the picture there is Jack Calloway and Harry Jacobs. Remember Harry Jacobs? He's a brother of Lillian Jacobs. Of course, this boat now is still sailing in the West Indies, but she's now called Rose Salter. Oh, there's another one. Of course, this again, that's Harry Jacobs on the left. Of course, he was an architect and a yacht designer along with his brother and worked in various places. I think he designed some boats that were built at Woodnuts, but he also worked for Vosper Thornycross, I think, or Vospers. And that, of course, there is Jack Calloway, the well-known yard boatswain. They're standing in the store, again, the one in the middle, with the sail loft above the original shed that Woodnuts originally started in. Now, we've seen this one before. This was cut out of the Candy Press back in about 1936-37. This is a Bembridge 1 design, still sailing today. They were designed by Alfred Westmacott, and they were built after his death, of course. In the stern, up in the stern, is Frank Phillips, son of Luther, and at the bottom, Basil Henley with his wheelbrace. And, of course, Basil's still alive now. Now then, we're getting on to 1938 now. This was a boat called Ginny the Queen that was built at Woodnuts for a Cornish owner, and there she is, partly built, nearly in the same place as that Bembridge 1 design we looked at just on the picture before. She was built, somebody sailed her down to Cornwall for the owner, and she's still sailing again today. Now then, I don't know anything about this photo. It's at Woodnuts, and I'm not sure whether it's before the war or after the war. Can anybody recognise anybody on there?
Mr. Phillips on the right.
That one there, Fanny Phillips.
Fanny Phillips, yeah.
Is that Frank Phillips? Jack Vaughan? Oh, there's Frank at the back.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who else there is there. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be. I probably recognised him 5 years ago. Anybody recognise that one? Or that one? Who's that one? Don't look like a boat builder, does he? Not wearing that hat. Anyway, in the background you can see the, it looks like the boathouses on Actal Sand. I'm not quite sure with that one. So nobody recognised anyone else. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 7 of them there, aren't there? Perhaps I'll find out who they are next time.
Monica thinks that 1, 2 is Jim Sutton.
Oh, right. Oh, great. Jim Southgate then? There's all roughly the same hands working down there for years, you know. I mean.
Well, Mr. Phillips is still alive. Perhaps you could show him the photograph. He might be able to know.
Yeah, I don't think he's too good at the moment. I might be able to find him though. Oh, that's a good idea, O'Donnell. I'll see what I can do with that.
Or Basil might be able to tell you.
Basil, yeah, Basil's back on form now. Well, the war is approaching now, so you might look at this drawing, which is not very good, but this was, we're almost certain, ML, which is a Fairmont marine boat design, 100, being built in Woodnuts boat shed. You can see how big the shed was and how big the boats are now. About 115 foot long, something like that. And this was the prototype. They didn't build many of these because they were not strong enough. So they had to upright the design and strengthen up all the scantings on them and make them a bit stronger for the type of weather they were going to have to go through during the war. But anyhow, this was ML 100. And there she is. That's her afloat. And Woodnuts built 2 of those. They had 3 score Paul Scott engines, speed about 25 knots. With a 12-man crew. So they didn't do bad. They weren't they were quite good boats, but not up to it, so they changed the design of it. This is just to show you what the MLs they built look like. You've heard of the MLs, they built them all over the Empire, then what we called it? 568 of these were built. I think Woodnuts only built 2 or 3 of them. These were 112 foot long, about 70 tons. They carried various things. They were guns, depth charges, all sorts of things, and they were general duty boats. But they would have done a speed of probably 16 knots. They wouldn't have outrun the old German E-boats. Now then, this is the C-class motor gunboat, which is on similar lines to the A-class that we showed you before, but uprated. This one would have been 110 foot long, 3 shafts, Hall-Scott engines, 26 knots. Woodnuts built 3, and this is one of them, 312. So that was a Woodnuts boat. Now then, we've seen this one before, haven't we? This is on the quay. We think it's we don't know where it's in it. It's a D-class motor torpedo boat. We're not sure. It's either a motor torpedo boat or it's a motor gunboat built on the same hull. 4 shafts with 4 engines, of course. Packard petrels. Raising a total horsepower of 5,000 horsepower. Speed roughly 27.5 knots. 10 were built by Woodnuts. 3 lost in action. Bows wide on the right. And we think the man at the back, you can see half his face on the rope there, and we think that might be Cliff Henley. We're not sure who all the other people are, and she'd have either had a Dutch or a Norwegian crew, this one. But they were taking the props on board, because once Woodnuts launched one of these things, they could not get them back on their slip again, they were too big. So they go to the Red Wing quay, wait for the tide to drop, and then take the props off and change the props. That's the way they used to do it. This is just to show you what they look like underway. This would have been a motor gunboat, this one. She didn't have the torpedo tubes on her. 22 boats, as I said, built at Woodnuts, all types of different crews, mostly on the motor gunboats and the motor torpedo boats. The crew won 16 DSCs and 14 DSMs, so you can see they were sort of in the thick of the battle at times. And this is just one to show you with the torpedo tube. See the slot in the side where the torpedoes will come out? 1/3 the way back from the bay. And you can look at the guns on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's so many guns on, it's unbelievable. And these boats used to run in under the enemy merchant ships and destroyers and that, and just run straight at them, fire, and turn around and get out quick. That's the way they used to operate. There's also 3 built like this for the RAF, the Royal Air Force, as long-range rescue boats. They'd done well in service, but one was sunk by the guns from a German U-boat, but the other 2 survived. Now this is just like an ML. We've shown this one before. This one was, the war's over now, and this one's coming in for either to take the engine out and send them back to America because they were on lease land, or she was coming in for a conversion job. Oh. Now then, who's these people now? Anybody know? On the bottom left, Barbara Bennett. Is there a Reenie Luff on there somewhere? Well, I don't know any of them, you see. So I'm wondering if anybody could tell me this. I don't know who the other three are then.
One's Steve Betteridge's mother.
Yeah.
I don't know which one.
But they were at dinner, what I called, did I say the tea ladies?
Canteen ladies, weren't they?
Yeah, I should have called them the dinner ladies. Yeah. Yeah. I was saying earlier when I was talking about Harry Jacobs. Well, Harry Jacobs invented the barrage balloon, believe it or not. That was one of the things he's quite famous for. And just going back a bit, because I meant to tell you this about 2 minutes ago. Jim Southgate was taking an ML up to Southampton Waters, maybe to fuel up or whatever. Coming down Southampton Water was a tug towing one of these barrage balloons. Well, it was dipping like a kite, kept dipping in the water and going up as they were pulling it down. Well, as Jim was going up Southampton Water with his ML on trials, he had his... Jim, of course, was the skipper. Bert Coombs from the garage, he was the engineer. Ron Southgate was the crew on their end, and Babes Wade. Of course, the barrage balloon stuck on the top of the mast of the Woodnuts ML and burst. Of course, there was a bit of a problem there for a few minutes, and part of the balloon draped over the ML. Well, eventually, nobody could find Babes Wade. They thought he'd gone over the side. Anyhow, as they pulled the balloon free, there was Babes laid on the deck looking up. Bert Coombs said, "Thought you was dead, Babes." Babes snarled back like he used to. "Dead, be blowed," he said. He said, "I think I've missed my mammoth right." So there you are. All right, dinner ladies, here we are now. This is another ML at St Helens Quay. This was definitely converted into a private yacht, this was. But what they would normally do is take the big engines out and put smaller ones in. And they would make lovely yachts, because some of these boats were only about a year old. Well, anybody recognise that shed? That's the one that was the key. Now that's during the war, where once Woodnuts launched their MLs and MGBs and that, they would go up there and be fitted out. All the bits and pieces would be done up there. And that, of course, is an RAF, what we called a pinnace, 60 foot she is. And she would be used for various things. One or two were turned into inshore air sea rescue boats with like a surgery aft, but that one would have been a working boat. I suppose they used to work with the seaplanes and that. But that was, I suppose that must have been in the late 40s. Now then, this is a boat built, we're getting on a bit now, the Sonata. She was built at Woodnuts in 1950, a William Forsyth design. Now, William Forsyth was a very clever Scottish designer, and there wasn't many boats that was built outside his Scottish yard, but apparently this one was near enough designed. The man who had it built liked the design, and so he got Woodnuts to build her, and that's her off the quays on trials. Yeah, well. Now then. That again is Jack Calloway on the left and Babes Wade on the right. Now, I don't know what date this is. I'm sure it must be after the war. Does anybody here know would it be after the war? I'm not sure. Anyway, there is a little tale to tell about Babes Wade. I've heard about 40 versions of this little yarn I'm going to tell you, and The one I've got now, Bunny Phillips told me. So we started straight from the horse's mouth. Now, when you started work at Woodnuts, either as an apprentice or any type of hand, the first thing you done was to find the space under the bench to put your toolbox or your tools. You would then drive a nail in somewhere, 6 foot off the ground or so, to keep the rats out of your lunchbox, to hang your coat. Well, in most boatyards, then that was your own personal little bit of the yard. That's where you put everything and nobody would touch it. So that was the way it was. Baysway was working on a boat in one of the stores one day, and he heard this noise down below on the floor. So he looked over the boat to see what was going on, and he shouted down, "Lou calls, what you doing firking about in my corner?" "All right, babe," said Lou, "I'm only looking for a strop to lift out an engine." "You know that's my corner," he said, "and everything there's personal in that corner. And not only that," he said, "there's nothing in that corner belongs to me, let alone you." There's another nice boat, Silver Ghost, built 1950, twin screw. Don't know the length of her, she's about 24 tons. Nice boat, isn't she? But a bit dumpy looking at her, and you find that within the next 5 years the designs change and they make them a bit more streamer. Now then, we're getting up to it now. The boat itself is called a Dragon class. Polaris, she was quite a well-known boat in racing for a few seasons. On the left, with his side boots, George Dove. Now then, somebody has got to know who the man is in the white. In the white? Anybody know who that is? I don't know who that one is. Shorty. How about you, Peter? Do you know? The one in the white boiler suit? I've seen his face. Next door, the third one along, Vic Gallop from Nettleston. And the last one would be Jack Vaughan. So I'm sure that's got to be in the 50s, I think, that one. Now, I've shown this one before, but this is again roughly in the same place as Ginny the Queen and the Bembridge 1 design we've seen. I don't know why, but they seem to always be built in that place. It might be because there's a bit of light coming in the window, because the light was a bit poor in those days. But that was just built for an American owner. Now then. Last time I done this talk, 5.5 years ago, mind you, I had the staff of Woodnuts in 1949. Well, this one's 1953. I'll shape most of them out for you, and if I can't remember all of them, if anybody else can, I don't mind them shaping out as well. Top row, left to right, Arthur Rayner, John Tolley, Arthur Warren, Johnny Coram, Basil. Who's that next one then? Bernard Riddle. They were all engineers. No, they weren't. Next row, middle row, Fred. Who's the next one then? Ryde. Thomas Cotton from Ryde. And there we have Peter Duncan. I know he's here somewhere tonight. Bert Lewis and Ron Tier. Now the bottom, the first three are fitters. Terry Connolly, or Connelly as we used to call him. Malcolm Barclay. Was that Purcell White? Jack Henley. Lou Coles. Breezer Theobald. And Barbara, who was that? Barbara Russell. So there we are. Now, when the next slide comes on, you might see one or two of them again. There we are then. We got Bernard Riddle at the top. The next one was Freddie Lyle. He used to come from Ventnor. Bill Lang, Ralph Roach, John Munns, Eddie Luff, Gozo Edmonds, and Paddy, can't remember his surname. He married, and they, middle row, Johnny Woods, from right, John Henley, Mike Scoville, Custer White, Ted Churchill, Peter Simmons, who's the next one? Jack Daltrey, Bill Cracknell on the end from Briding. Then, who was this next lady in from Barbara? Yeah, right there, aren't they? Reg Floyd, works manager, Alec Miller. Always forgets the next bloke's name. Next to Alec Miller. He worked in the office, didn't he? Well, they'll come in a minute. Margaret Clifton. And was that a crop for a girl? And there's Alfie Sam Lewis. Now then, we've not got many left, have we? Otto Woodford, third from the right, back row. Jack Vaughan, Graham Whitehead. Next one down, Ernie Hobbs, Chopper Wade, Brian Munns, and then the bottom row, the last three, Peter Mormon, David Henley, the bloke by the name of Cyril Smith. There we are. We've shown this one before, but Breezer Theobald's up the ladder. Head over the top of the Adaster there's a sort of an old Brixton trawler called the Guy Bird. And of course, actuals again, right to the left, you can just see the houseboat sat there on the thing. And that was, I think that was built for Sir William Ackland or somebody from Seaview. She was a nice boat, that one. We've seen this one also before, but it's such a good one. This was a 6-metre called the Royal Thames, designed by David Boyd, who I think designed and built a 12-metre for the America's Cup something. You can't really see too many people there. It's not the whole of the photo. I'll just see on point Bert Lewis out to you. That's Bert Lewis. And that bloke there, that's me. So there, I know it's me, but while I'm holding me plane, I'd have been about 18 then. So there we are. But there is Jack Henley's working on there somewhere, and Dick Newell. But of course, they're out of the picture. We've done this one before as well. This was a South Coast One design. I think designed by the Nicholsons. Woodnuts built 7. This one was called the Janka, and she went to South Africa. But lovely little boats, built for about £1,800 each. I don't know how they've done it then, but I suppose wages were only about £9 a week then. But that's outside the old Woodnuts boat shed. Now then, I said before, lifeboats, fiberglass. All the fitters knows about these, but they were built as ship's lifeboats for fiberglass, and Woodnuts had decided that the fiberglass would make a lot of money out of fiberglass, and that everything they'd done on the wooden boats would be sheer profit. Well, it didn't work out like that, and it was a dirty job, not like it is now. There's a lot of work in these lifeboats. They were all built under specification. But anyway, Woodnuts built quite a few of these. This is getting towards the end, about 1958, something like that, 59. This is getting to the end of Woodnuts as we know it. There is a few people there. We think the one at the back, stood up, is Arthur Warren. The one at the front, who do you reckon that is? Is that Paddy? Anybody know? The one on the big oar in the middle is Jack Vaughan. There's somebody leant over the engine, which could be another engineer. I don't know who that is. The one in the middle stood up at the back is Chick Actual, I'm almost sure. But this is sort of the beginning of the end for Woodnuts. Within the next couple of years, they'd have folded up nearly and moved to the mainland. But it's a dismal looking picture. It's misty. There's an old landing craft in the background that was a wartime one that started to be converted to a house boat. But it's a shame, but there it is. That's the way it goes. And they built loads of these, and a lot of those on the slip had lever power. They pull these levers backwards and forwards and turn the props, so they're what we might call hydraulic. Anybody recognise this one? This was called the Petra. She was a 60-footer, built for Robert Steele, about 1957, I think. Designed by Fred Parker. She was one of the last big boats that Woodnuts built. She was a lovely looking boat, very big, very beamy. On her deck, I don't know who the men are on the deck. My eyes are bad now, but anyway, there's a few hands hanging about, aren't there, when you look? That boat on the deck was a little 16-foot tender that went with the boat, and the other side would have been a 10-foot dinghy. You know, I was lucky enough to build both of them as an apprentice, so whether they ever leaked or not, I don't know. There we are. Of course, we've seen this one before. This is coming to the end, 1959, roughly. Wakey Wakey for Billy Cotton. I think she caught fire in the end. In the backgrounds, I think it's Actual's trip boat called the Henry Rose. The one right in the, I'm sure that's the one. But this was a nice little class of boat. They built 5 or 6 of these, but there wasn't a lot of luck with this one, apparently. Now then, this is a lovely photo as far as I'm concerned, because this shows what Woodnuts would have looked like, but it wasn't taken until about 1974. Again, if you start from the left, that was the building that was built. We could see him building that brick place there with the roof half done in that crinkly old picture. Next door was the dome shed. She was a Dutch barn. I think that was built during the war. And in the top, they would have what they called the mould loft, where they'd lay all the frames on. That one there is the same old John Henry Woodnut bit that started it all off, the cell loft. And over here is 2 boat sheds, where the MLs and all the boats would have been built. This one here, and that one there, and that one there, were all there when Don Finley was running the yard he ran the yard for a while, and that with Arthur Mercer was their design, and they built quite a few of those. So there we are. Where's me thing? Of course, now we're going to move on in time. I'm going to leave Woodnuts now and just scatter a few things around the harbour, but different things that I thought might be interesting, because once Woodnuts closed down, you make you wonder what happened to the 80 hands that worked down there. Some went round the bank, various firms, some went to Cays, a few even went over to work at Portsmouth. So all the boat builders' hands scattered all over the Isle of Wight, and maybe a bit farther, but it was a sad time really, because Woodnuts had employed a lot of people for many years, and as I say, it certainly boosts the economy of St Helens and the surrounding areas. What I'm going to show you now is something completely different. Now, I don't know how this one got in there, but it's in there. This is a dredger that dredged in the harbour. We remember the little baluster, but this one would have been a lot bigger, called the Rock Chimes. Well, once they put the embankment in, the harbour had to be dredged nearly continuous. This was one of the dredgers. I don't know who that bloke is on the crane. I wondered at one time, it was George Bartlett, Laura, is it? The one in the shed. That's not your dad, is it?
Still in the shed.
You see. I lost me little thing. Did he drive the crane sometimes? That one there. Would that have been it? I'm not sure, because that's the only one I'm not sure of. No, all right. Ah. Well, on the left then would be Luther Phillips. Who else was it there? Somebody else, I knew. Oh, right. Or was it Back Dyer? No, I think Luther was on the left. Anybody recognise Luther, or was that Back Dyer? Anyway, the middle one is Gongo Wright. Nancy Wright's father. Now, do anybody, and of course he didn't know. And then there's Back Dyer. So that's sort of three locals, and that might be George, I don't know. We'll carry on anyway. I thought I might have found out tonight. It's hard luck, wasn't it? What's happening here then? Now, believe it or not, this is Keith Nelson's round the embankment. Now, Keith Nelson was a firm set up by two gentlemen, curly black, I can't remember their names. They set Keith Nelson up. Eventually, Peter Thornycroft bought them out. They were already called Keith Nelson's, and formed a design shop. A lot of Woodnuts hands, or quite a lot, went to work for this firm. And over the years, Keith Nelson's were probably as famous or more famous than Woodnuts. With modern times and that, they would build boats all over the country and all over the world. And this was one of the prototypes of the fiberglass. They started building in fiberglass. And this is a Nelson 32 with the staff, winning the Daily Express sealed handicap prize in the Coast to Torquay powerboat race. There's a few hands there. I don't know if you want me to pick them out. Who's that bloke stood on the boat there? He's a Thornycroft, but not Peter Thornycroft. Do you know John? Roger. Right, top row, right to left. Jack Loftus, the electrician. Next door's me. Who's the next one? I can't see. I've got bad eyes now.
It looks like Graham Whitehead.
Graham Whitehead. I can't really. Den Hayward. Who's that? Who's next to Den Hayward? Oh, that's Keith. Who are John Munn, is it? Yeah. Ginger Coombs. Who's that bloke with the white tie then? Yeah. I can't see all of them. Bottom row then. Bottom row at the left, that's Bunny Phillips. Is that Cedric Arnold? Yeah. John Munns. Nobby, little Nobby. Shamrock Mundle. Nobby. Shamrock Mundle. Can't see who the next one is. But on the end is Peter Thornycroft, the bloke that designed all these Nelson boats. That would have been about 1962, would it? Something like that. So we're getting on in time. I better slow down a bit and read. This is the same prizes. We can see these a little bit better now. This is a champagne that was won on that powerboat race. You can see people a little bit better there now. There's Ginger Coombs, John Askham, who's here tonight, Roger Thornycroft, two or three office staff there, Dusty Miller, Sid Miller. Who else is that? Ken Ford there, yeah. Looks like Ken Ford. Let me have a look. See if this little red thing. I think that's Ken Ford, isn't it? Who's that there? John Sheen. Can't remember him. Can't see who that is there in between, can it? This there?
Is that you?
Yeah, it's me. Who's that there? Bunny Phillips, of course. Jack Loftus again. Keith. And so on and so on. Harold Munns.
Who's that child?
That's Nobby. I don't know his real name. We've already called him Nobby. This is a nice one. 4 Nelson launches. This is an advert, but they look nice and they're all out there for a photograph to advertise. And they built quite a lot of these little launches. They're well known. They went all over the world. Not sure who's in them. Think the harbour's pretty empty. Look at it. Look, no moorings or anything. Now then, this is taking up the key. This is another Nelson. Again, all these photos, Bunny Phillips is in most of them. There's Bunny now in the back end. He's dusting the paint and painting the place. Forward of this boat is a boat called the Marika, which was a harbour defence launch during the war, about 60, 70 feet. Woodnuts actually converted that to a private yacht, and Ken Grimway was the skipper on it. And if you look to the left, you can still see the old crane there. But this boat was moored right alongside the quay where the MLs and MTBs used to fit out at the quay. Now, Bunny Phillips, little yarn here, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I'll tell you anyway. Bunny Phillips, 1969, was working down the Red Wing Quay, painting the bottom of a Red Wing. Very quiet down there that day, and he's away painting away there, and a boat tied up alongside the Red Wing Quay with 3 or 4 kids on there and a couple of parents tied up, and this youngster come ashore, come up to Bunny and said, "Can I help you paint, please?" Bunny said, "Clear off." Off the nipper went. He come back a couple of minutes later with a biscuit. He said, "If I give you a biscuit, can I help paint the boat?" Bunny said, "Well, all right." He said, "Paint the rudder, which is straight. Be careful, want it done properly. Don't get any paint on your clothes or your parents are going to tell me off, okay?" Nipper done a bit of painting, got fed up with it after a couple of minutes, went back into the boat, and off they went. You see. This is, "Can I help you paint, please?" Bunny said, "Clear off." Off the nipper went. He come back a couple of minutes later with a biscuit. He said, "If I give you a biscuit, can I help paint the boat?" Bunny said, "Well, all right." He said, "Paint the rudder, which is straight. Be careful, want it done properly. Don't get any paint on your clothes or your parents are going to tell me off, okay?" Nipper done a bit of painting, got fed up with it after a couple of minutes, went back into the boat, and off they went. You can see who that is, can't you? Prince Andrew. This is a picture of a Nelson 40 footer. This wasn't supposed to be in it. We got our photos mixed up. But anyhow, this is the type of thing that Peter and his team would have designed in the offices around the embankment. This was a gunboat or a patrol boat with a gun on for, don't know if I can pronounce the name, Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Well, they built quite a lot of these, but these were built on the Hamble River. But it was a Peter Thornycroft design. I'm going to have to slow down if I was finished by half past 8. Perhaps everybody like a cup of tea. This is another one. John Askham will recognise this one. He's sat there. This was called Horatia. He named most of his boats after Nelson or something to do with Nelson. Then. She got this one done 30 knots. She's a lovely boat. She had two big Caterpillar diesels in her, about 400 horsepower each, and she would do 30 knots. Nelson or something to do with Nelson. Then. She got this one done 30 knots. She's a lovely boat. She had two big Caterpillar diesels in her, about 400 horsepower each. What's the name? Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi? United Arab Emirates. Well, they built quite a lot of these, but these were built on the Hamble River. But it was a Peter Thornycroft design. This is, for it done properly, don't get any paint on your clothes or your parents are going to tell me off, okay? And if we're done a bit of painting, got fed up with it after a couple of minutes, went back into the boat, and off they went. And a boat tied up alongside the Red Wing Quay with 3 or 4 kids on there and a couple of parents tied up. And this youngster come ashore, come out to Bunny and said, "Can I help you paint, please?" Bunny said, "Clear off." Off the nipper went. He come back a couple of minutes later with a biscuit. He said, "If I give you a biscuit, can I out paint the boat?" Bunny said, "Well, all right." He said, "Paint." This is, "Can I help you paint, please?" Bunny said, "Clear off." Off the nipper went. He come back a couple of minutes later with a biscuit. He said, "If I give you a biscuit, can I out paint the boat?" Bunny said, "Well, all right." He said, "Paint the rudder, which is straight. Be careful, want it done properly. Don't get any paint on your clothes or your parents are going to tell me off, okay? And if we're done a bit of painting, got fed up with it after a couple of minutes, went back into the boat, and off they went. You can see who that is, can't you? Prince Andrew. This is a picture of a Nelson 40 footer. This wasn't supposed to be in it. We got our photos mixed up. But anyhow, this is the type of thing that Peter and his team would have designed in the offices around the embankment. This was a gunboat or a patrol boat with a gun on for, don't know if I can pronounce the name, Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Well, they built quite a lot of these, but these were built on the Hamble River. But it was a Peter Thornycroft design. This is another one. John asked him to recognise this one. He sat there. This was called Horatia. He named most of his boats after Nelson or something to do with Nelson. She got this one done 30 knots. She's a lovely boat. She had two big Caterpillar diesels in her, about 400 horsepower each, and she would do 30 knots. Nelson or something to do with Nelson. She got this one done 30 knots. She's a lovely boat. She had two big Caterpillar diesels in her, about 400 horsepower each. What's the name? Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Well, they built quite a lot of these, but these were built on the Hamble River. But it was a Peter Thornycroft design. This is, for want it done properly, don't get any paint on your clothes or your parents are going to tell me off, okay? And if we're done a bit of painting, got fed up with it after a couple of minutes, went back into the boat, and off they went. and a boat tied up alongside the Red Wing Quay with 3 or 4 kids on there and a couple of parents tied up. And this youngster come ashore, come up to Bunny and said, "Can I help you paint, please?" Bunny said, "Clear off." Off the nipper went. He came back a couple of minutes later with a biscuit. He said, "If I give you a biscuit, can I help paint the boat?" Bunny said, "Well, all right." He said, "Paint